It was a cool October day in 2019, the kind of day when the air feels alive with whispered secrets. I had just started living on my own in Asheville, North Carolina, fresh from college and eager for a taste of independence. That morning, the sky was overcast and soft drizzles blurred the edges of the turning leaves. With no work weighing me down, I decided to drive nearly an hour to DuPont State Forest, a hidden gem I'd heard whispered about among local hikers. I parked at a quiet lot and set off along a winding trail. The forest greeted me with a soft rustling of leaves and the earthy scent of rain-soaked soil. I was alone on the path, my only companions the crunch of my footsteps and the gentle hum of nature. Soon, I reached Triple Falls, a cascade of water that tumbled down like a curtain of shimmering silver. I settled onto a moss-covered rock, capturing a few photos and videos as the mist danced around me. In that quiet moment, the forest felt both magical and intimate. Then I noticed her. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure standing among the trees. A woman dressed in a simple coat, her short grayish-blonde hair catching what little light there was. I raised my hand in a friendly wave, expecting a smile or a nod. Instead, she simply stared. Her eyes, hidden behind a veil of mystery, held me in place for a heartbeat before she slowly turned and melted back into the dense woods. I brushed it off. Perhaps she was just another hiker. I resumed my walk, but as I climbed higher towards High Falls, the unsettling sensation grew. The trail wound steeply upward, each step echoing in the hushed forest. At High Falls, the water roared louder, its power a constant reminder of nature's raw force. I sat on another rock trying to absorb the view when I looked up and saw her again. There, on the far edge of the trail, she appeared as if out of nowhere. This time, her stare felt heavier, filled with an intensity that sent a chill straight to my spine. I fumbled with my phone, pretending to be absorbed in it, but every so often my eyes would dart up, hoping to catch her once more. And when I finally looked, she had vanished into the shadowy embrace of the trees. Unnerved yet curious, I pressed on. Soon the trail led me to an old, weathered, covered bridge. Its wooden planks creaked under the gentle weight of time. I paused to take a few scenic videos, framing the rustic structure against the backdrop of autumn's fading brilliance. As I sipped from my water bottle and admired the view, I caught movement at the end of the bridge. There she was again, standing silently, her presence as unmistakable as the chill that raced through my veins. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching me, judging me, or perhaps warning me. I stepped closer and softly called, "Excuse me?" But she only turned and began to walk away, disappearing with an unnerving swiftness that defied her apparent age. The rest of my descent was haunted by a growing paranoia. Every rustle of leaves and every distant snap of a twig made me glance over my shoulder. On the way back, I stopped a younger woman walking her dog to ask if she had seen anyone unusual. She merely smiled and dismissed it as one of those odd forest tales. That evening, I tried to shake off the lingering unease. I met a girl at our favorite local bar, where we sipped pumpkin spice beers and watched a baseball game. Between laughs and light-hearted chatter, I recounted my strange encounters on the trail. She found it amusing, almost too bizarre to be true, but her laughter did little to calm my restless thoughts. Later, when I finally returned home and climbed into bed, exhaustion had pulled me under. But in the still darkness of my room, sleep was a fragile, fleeting visitor. Around midnight, I stirred awake to a sound, a soft and deliberate shuffle at the foot of my bed. My heart hammered as I strained to see in the gloom. There, standing at the foot of the bed, was the unmistakable figure of that mysterious woman. My breath caught. It was as if every nerve in my body had ignited with terror. I screamed, a raw, desperate sound that filled the silent apartment. In my panic, I scrambled away from the bed, crawling toward the headboard, trying to put as much distance as possible between myself and the ghastly figure. For a long, excruciating moment, she simply stood there. Then, as if she had never been there at all, she turned and walked silently out of the room. I fumbled for the lamp and flipped every switch in sight, flooding the apartment with harsh, unforgiving light. There was no one. Not in the closet, behind the couch, nor beneath the bed. I was alone, except for the echo of that terror that refused to fade. Shaking, I grabbed the small knife kept in my nightstand, a futile comfort, and called my father. His sleepy voice on the other end tried to rationalize what I'd seen, suggesting that I might have been hallucinating, still half asleep in the dark. But even as his words floated over the line, the image of that woman's piercing gaze was etched in my mind. I forced myself back to sleep that night, barricading my bedroom door with my dresser, a feeble shield against the unknown. Then 2 days later, a phone call shattered any lingering normalcy. My mom's voice trembled as she explained that her sister, my aunt, whom I'd never met, had passed away in Germany. The shock was overwhelming, but nothing compared to the sight of her face on the prayer card I later saw. In that moment, a cold, bone-chilling realization washed over me. The face on the card was identical to the spectral woman from the forest, and my nightmare. The resemblance was eerie, as if the same soul had followed me from the trails into my room. That series of events upended everything I thought I knew about the world. The forest, my quiet solitude, and even the safety of my own home had been pierced by a presence that defied explanation. Now, every autumn day carries a weight of dread and mystery, a constant reminder that sometimes what we glimpse in the shadows is all too real. Story number 2. Carlos and I have been best friends since we were 10, and by the time we were 21, we even became roommates. Life in Brunswick, Georgia, a quiet coastal town where we both grew up, had started to feel a little too ordinary. There was one story, though, that always sent shivers down our spines. A creepy, old house that looked like it was built in another century. The rumors and ghost stories about it had grown over the years, and every Halloween, we and our friends would dare each other to explore it. One chilly October Friday night, when the air was cool and the darkness seemed to whisper secrets, we decided to do something wild. After work, we grabbed our baseball bats, just in case, and stopped for some fast food and beers. We even tucked a couple of cold ones into our backpacks, though we never planned on drinking inside. To avoid drawing attention, we carefully stashed our bats along the sides of our backpacks so no one would see us carrying them down the street. We drove to the area where the abandoned house stood, parking far down the road among large, spread-out properties. The street was nearly pitch black. No streetlights, just the faint glow of a few nearby houses. With our flashlights in hand, we set off quietly, whispering excitedly as we walked toward the looming structure. The house's front yard was a wild mix of dirt patches, overgrown grass, and weeds reaching up like grasping fingers. We circled around to the back, believing it would be less obvious than the front. To our surprise, the back door was unlocked. There were no broken windows or signs of forced entry, only the eerie silence of abandonment. We exchanged nervous glances and stepped inside. The interior was bigger than the house's small exterior suggested, but every room felt cramped and maze-like. The old furniture was scattered about like relics from another era, dusty, worn, and clearly abandoned in a hurry. As I wandered down a narrow corridor, I opened one of the cramped bedrooms. Bed nearly swallowed up the small space, and drawers in an old dresser revealed nothing but remnants of hurried searches, as if someone had already rifled through everything. Suddenly, I heard Carlos's voice echo from another room. "Yo, there's still furniture everywhere." I nodded in agreement, feeling the chill of the house seep into my bones. After exploring another bedroom, I returned to the corridor. 2 more doors lay ahead, One led to a tiny bathroom, and the final door revealed a long, creaky staircase descending into darkness. A surge of daring pushed me forward. "I'm going down," I muttered, half in defiance, half in nervous excitement. I stepped onto the first creaking step, each one groaning under my weight. Halfway down, I noticed a faint, almost hypnotic glow emanating from further below. My heart pounded, and in a moment of foolish bravery, or perhaps foolish curiosity, I switched off my flashlight. The eerie light still pulsed from the darkness ahead. I knew I should have turned back, like any normal person, but sometimes I do stupid things, like the heroes in horror movies who always get into trouble. At the bottom of the stairs, the basement revealed itself in ghostly silhouettes. Along the wall, 2 tall candles sat on a rickety table, their flames dancing weakly in the cool air. But that wasn't the most terrifying sight. Next to the candles, in an old rocking chair, something moved. The chair rocked slowly on its own, and as I stared, I saw a hand resting on one of its arms, a hand that shouldn't have been there. My blood ran cold. I turned on my heel and began to climb back up, each creak of the stairs sounding like a scream in the silence. I dared a quick glance back and saw that the faint glow from the candles still lingered, as if trying to pull me back into that dreadful room. With my heart hammering in my chest, I finally reached the top. When I turned around to shut the basement door, I realized it was now completely dark, the candles mysteriously extinguished. I retraced my steps through the cramped, twisting corridors of the house, trying to find the stairway that led back upstairs. When I reached it, I called out softly for Carlos. At first, there was no answer. I repeated his name, my voice echoing off the old walls. Finally, a voice answered from somewhere below, a cautious, trembling reply. "Are you serious?" Carlos asked from a darkened room. I hurried down to where he was waiting. "There's someone in the basement," I whispered urgently. "I saw it, a hand in that rocking chair, and now, I don't know." His eyes widened, and without another word, he followed me as we made our way back toward the door we had entered. As we passed the corridor with the basement door, our worst fears materialized. Standing right in front of that door was the unmistakable silhouette of a man. There was no mistaking his presence, a dark figure blocking our escape. Time seemed to slow as we exchanged terrified looks. "Just go," I repeated, more to myself than to Carlos, and we bolted out of the house. We sprinted down the street and reached our car in a matter of seconds, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The drive home was silent except for our racing hearts and stammered explanations. Carlos kept muttering, "Yo, what the heck was that?" I could only shake my head. The image of that rocking chair and the mysterious hand burned into my mind. We never went back. That night, I learned that no one legally lived in that house. It was clear to both of us that someone, or something, was squatting in the basement. Who that person was, or what they were doing there, I may never know. All I know is that ever since that night, I've avoided that street like a bad dream. The abandoned house remains a dark mystery, a place where forgotten memories and hidden terrors still linger in the shadows. Story number 3. It was October 1st and autumn was in full swing. The cool breeze and the changing leaves filled the air with a magic that I loved. This was my favorite season, especially because it was the first fall Carter and I were spending together in our new home. I wanted to surprise him by decorating our place with festive fall and Halloween items before he got home from work. I spent the day hunting for the perfect decorations. I stopped by a few stores like Marshall's, and then I scrolled through online listings. Finally, I came across a Facebook Marketplace ad that caught my eye. A big green plastic container filled with what looked like fall decorations. The ad promised everything must go for just $20. The seller, a man named Cody, had other strange items listed too, like a new iPhone and even Christmas decorations. His profile was low-key, showing only a close-up of a gray trucker's cap, hiding his face in shadow. Despite a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right, I decided to take the chance. I messaged Cody, and he replied quickly, explaining that he would be available around 9 p.m. I asked my friend Sally to join me for safety, and together we set off in my car toward the address he had sent. The drive was quiet and unsettling. The area was dim and unfamiliar, with few streetlights and an eerie silence hanging over the neighborhood. When we finally arrived, the house looked normal at first glance, a modest home with neatly kept lawns, though no cars were in the driveway. I quickly looked it up on Google Maps, and the street view revealed a town that didn't seem very welcoming. I sent another message to Cody, and his reply was immediate. "When you get here, you can come right in." Sally and I exchanged nervous glances. Something about his words and the silent house made us uneasy. We decided to ring the doorbell anyway, even as our hearts pounded in our chests. After a few tense seconds, the front door creaked open on its own. Through a partially drawn blind in one of the windows, we caught a glimpse of someone watching us. The sight of a dark, hidden figure made our skin crawl. Then we heard a low, almost mocking voice call out, "I'm at the door, come in." We stepped forward slowly, each of us gripped by a mix of curiosity and dread. Inside, the house was dimly lit. The living room was small and depressing. A faded pinkish-red carpet, old and worn-out furniture, and a heavy smell that was impossible to ignore. It smelled like something decayed and long forgotten. Right in the center of the room sat a red container with a green lid. Standing beside it was Cody, his appearance now far more menacing than friendly. His eyes seemed cold as he beckoned me closer. "Come, open the container," he urged in a deep, unsettling tone. My voice trembled as I asked, "Can you open it?" But he only smirked and replied, "Well, you're no fun." That was the moment Sally and I realized something was very, very wrong. Slowly, with a deliberate motion, Cody lifted the lid of the container. In an instant, a blast of an overpowering foul odor hit us. A stench so vile that it felt like it carried the smell of decay and death. It was nothing like the cheerful, crisp smell of fall decorations. Our eyes watered, our stomachs churned, and without thinking, we both backed away and then ran. We bolted out of the house into the cold night, our hearts racing as we sprinted back to the car. In the rearview mirror, the dark outline of that eerie house shrank away, but its horror remained etched in our minds. I sent a quick message to Cody, but there was no reply. Later that night, I told Carter everything that had happened. He listened in disbelief as I described the strange ad, the unsettling meeting, the watching eyes in the window, and the horrid smell from the container. Despite my strong warning, Carter insisted on checking the address himself. The very next day, he drove by the house. When he knocked on the door, an older woman answered, a gentle, soft-spoken lady who claimed that she had lived there alone for years. A quick look at the property records confirmed it. The house belonged to a woman in her late 60s. The mystery deepened. Had we been tricked by someone using a fake listing? Or was there something even darker lurking behind that door? I still shudder when I remember the half-hidden figure in the window and the sound of that deep, unsettling voice echoing in the empty room. Ever since that night, I've been cautious about online deals. What seemed like a fun surprise for our new home turned into a trap. A chilling reminder that sometimes, behind a simple ad, there can be a doorway to something truly horrifying. Every fall now carries a hint of that eerie night, a constant reminder that not all bargains are what they seem. Thanks for listening. Goodbye. And have a restful sleep.